On this episode of Star Trek Universe, we are talking all about Star Trek Picard 303, 17 seconds, right after these words from our mystery sponsors.
Welcome to Star Trek Universe, the podcast where you can listen in on two lifelong friends chat about Star Trek. My name is Matthew Carroll.
I am David C. Robertson.
Dave, a new episode of Picard up tonight. What'd you think?
Man, I absolutely loved it.
Yeah?
I had to pause several times to giggle incessantly and rewind because I didn't know what was happening.
Because you didn't know what was happening. What do you mean?
Right. I just had to I was laughing and giggling so loud. I was so excited that I was missing stuff.
Oh, I see.
So I had to rewind it, as they say in the 90s.
Yeah, as the kids say these days, rewind it.
Right. I had to be kind and rewind. I had to be kind to myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So far, as of this episode, my fears of too much Wrath of Conning has been, what's the word I'm looking for? Well, it's been squashed a bit.
Okay.
So I'm very hopeful.
Cool, man. I'm really glad. I really liked this episode too. It felt like some of the classic books that I love of Star Trek. I don't know. It just felt like some of the best Star Trek stuff all kind of happening. And I loved that it was the Changelings. I think that's a perfect fit for you know what we're talking about, and this era of Trek and bringing back an old enemy that this crew hasn't even had to face. It's just exciting. It's exciting to see, and I loved getting to solve it with the crew. Like when the saboteur walks in and he's not having problems with the Berterium or whatever.
Yeah,
I was like, can't breathe. And my mind said changeling, and then he hit him in the face, and his face it went screwy, and I was like, "Yes, I was right." It was like,
well, yeah, I knew that guy was the villain because he'd had that little verbal altercation on the bridge earlier before he stormed off, and it was before everybody left, and they did a weird close up of his face, and he looked very sinister. So
that's funny.
I was like, they've got a saboteur.
That's funny. But it makes sense. They said that they've been having every ship they've been dealing with has been having someone on the inside turn them over.
Mm-hmm.
Why? What do the Changelings need with Jack Crusher?
I don't know. Maybe they want to grab him and study him so they can look and sound like him and replace him.
Oh, that's interesting. But that seems like a big gambit in this case, they got caught in the act, I guess. So I guess if they had caught him and maybe they'd used him to get to Picard, I'm wondering how it's going to all relate, because I know that Beverly was talking all about how Picard is, these seem like Picard-sized enemies.
That was such a good conversation.
It was such a great conversation. You understood both sides, of the anger and the defensiveness, and I don't know, it just really made a lot of sense. And it made a lot of sense why she would keep the child from him, even though it's a totally jerk move,
Yeah.
I tried to bring him to you, and you were literally being hunted every time.
Yeah. And oh my God, when she when she's like, we knew we were at the end, and he's like, I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And he was he put out there, it was yes, it was the end of our romantic relationship. We tried 5 times.
Yeah, that was terrible. And it's just it's just we had a relationship beyond that, and it should have continued, and I had to just sit around and wonder why it ended all this time. Ugh, it's just terrible, man.
Yeah. And he, just every part of this episode I really loved. I loved the before segment where we see, Picard and Riker having a drink, toasting Riker as a new father.
Really good de-aging in that scene.
and I don't even know how much computer de-aging it was. Like, it actually kind of just looked like they just gave him some beard dye and let Stewart be his actual age.
Their skin looked smoother than it does. I think they did some either computer or makeup or whatever they did looked really good. It did not. They didn't give him the old Brent Spiner treatment.
Right. Whatever they did, it looked great. And I enjoyed every bit of that. I loved seeing Deanna be like, bring the whiskey. Because the kid is vomiting all over the engineering room. Hell yeah. Loved it. Oh my gosh, man. I really did just love this episode. I love the changelings. I love Worf. I love him. It's like his lengthy title of all the things he's done. Slayer of Gowron and everything. And he's like, I have made chamomile. You know?
Yeah. I love that he added in his Earth parents as part of his title. And that he's working on himself. As the humans say, I am working on myself.
But it's important to note the beheadings are on Wednesday. Is that Worf's version of a joke?
Yeah, it's a good joke. Good joke, Worf. One of the things that was a little weird about Worf, and I cannot blame the actor for this, because the actor, he's a lot older. His voice is so different. And I think it's just age. Like, he was doing a very, affected lower voice on TNG, and that's just a hard thing to keep up at his age and stuff. And it's just very, very different from the Worf voice that I'm used to.
Well, I didn't really notice much of a difference, if any. I know Michael Dorn has talked about over the years how when he first started doing Worf, he had to go down an octave. And then he did it so long that his voice just naturally got there. Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. I've heard him talk about that too, and I don't think he has that anymore.
But then the last time we saw him, freaking Stuart Bayard, the director of Nemesis, decided to make him more alien. Let's change his voice a little with computers, and that's weird. So I'm glad they've stepped back from that, it seems.
Yeah, for sure. Was that in Nemesis?
That was Nemesis. He said that apparently he had them make his voice sound a little more alien.
Interesting. Well, man, I just thought this was a great episode. I loved Jack Crusher and Seven kind of working together and sort of becoming acquainted with each other and friendly, and then LaForge getting in on that too. It just feels like they're really building out the crew. I felt like in this episode, I went from kind of knowing nobody of the new crew to feeling like I'm getting to know everybody, you know?
Yeah.
I'm getting a sense of Jack. I'm getting a sense of LaForge. Even Shaw, we're getting a better sense of. I loved him sitting on the table, bleeding to near death, and saying, how is she finding us? To Jack. It was just great. It was just that the captain obsessing over saving the crew even on his deathbed, you know?
Absolutely.
Which is not his deathbed, but, you know.
It's close to deathbed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I adored all of that. And it's a slow build up over the course of the episode, but I really loved where we left Picard and Riker.
That was the one part that I was not keen on. Personally, because yes, Picard had been pushing him in one direction, but you're the captain, dude. He didn't do something against your will. He didn't Michael Burnham this shit. He just gave you the same advice he'd been giving you. The situation had changed enough where you agreed with his assessment and you went for it, you know? And then to blame your oldest friend, you think you're dying and you look at your oldest friend and say, leave the bridge, you've killed us all. When you did that shit, you're the captain, you made the call. I thought that was petulant and weird. If they were to die in that moment, that's the weakest sauce way to go out for Riker, you know?
Yes, but also, when you look at the pain on his face, knowing that he's about to die, and he'll never be able to reconcile with Deanna and Kestra. That is, I feel like that is pure emotion speaking from Riker.
I agree, but it just felt like whiny and weird to me. It just felt whiny and weird and buck passing, you know? Like,
oh yeah, definitely.
You made that call, man.
He did make that call. I agree with you. But I think there's more going on emotionally.
Agreed. I definitely think you're right. But that's the thing. It just feels like you got to put that stuff away in those moments, you know? Like, you can't let your emotions drive the ship in that moment, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I would say normally he would, but they also kind of seem like they're at an emotional breaking point right now.
I mean, they've all been kind of on the raggedy edge, on their own versions of the raggedy edge, you know?
We get in that conflict we never got during the Roddenberry years, man.
Oh, yeah. For sure. Except for with Worf and Rafi, who are really hitting it off. I thought it was, again, like, okay, so I like everything. It was all going great. And then him being like, all right, we're partners now, felt like a little forced. Because, like, you've been partners. You've been working together all this time. And you just worked together on a mission, and y'all are already talking about going to the next mission, and it's like, it felt like it was a hand-holdy for the audience moment instead of like, you know, like Worf asking Raffi to be his partner feels like something that they wanted us to see instead of like something that made any sense in that moment.
Yeah, I agree with you, but I also feel like it is exactly what would have happened right before a commercial break on the original on the the Next Generation. So like, and you know, you got to give Worf some time, man. You got to, like, you know, trial basis, like, was the first part. Now he's like, we're officially partners. My man was just making it official.
Yeah, you've proven yourself, but it just felt weird. Felt a little strange.
Worf always does. That's why everyone makes fun of him constantly on the show. Like,
So the portal tech is the portal tech they used on that city the same portal tech that the Shrike is using?
You would have to assume.
Yeah, right? Like, I am assuming. Which, I guess they've had it for a little while, or like, yeah, I don't know. Or it's got to, you know, it's tying all the stuff together. Clearly, the changelings are setting something up using the portal tech in that one situation, and they're also have installed a version of it on the ship that can do it. Yeah, I don't know. It was a little strange to me. Felt strange, but also obviously those two technologies are related.
yeah. No, I saw it and I was like, oh shit, it's coming together.
Yeah.
And I'm just like wondering, like, how in the hell does Moriarty and Lore figure into all of this?
Right? Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's crazy. I still want to go back and rewatch the Moriarty episodes. I've been meaning to do that. Maybe we'll do that before next week.
I won't have a chance to, but it is what it is.
Yeah, well, I just want for my own edification.
Edification, that's a big word for a pie-eyed drunk. For the purposes of that joke, Matt is a pie-eyed drunk. I don't know.
Yes, exactly. I keep going back to, like, what do the changelings want? And I just have no clue.
Apparently Odo contacted freaking Worf and was like, hey, there's an offshoot who didn't accept the end of the Dominion War, so...
Right. Well, I get that I get the broader idea that they want to bring down the Federation and all the solids. But I guess, like, what do they want with Jack Crusher? And is it related to Picard, or is it not? The way she talked about Picard, like, those are Picard-sized enemies, made me think of the Doctor, which I thought was a little funny. Like, clearly you've drawn these enemies here with your legend, you know?
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see a little more from the Voyager lore next episode, because I don't know if you caught it last week, and I meant to bring it up on the show, and I didn't, but one of the things Sneed had in his collection was Cisco's ball.
You mean the DS9 lore?
Well, I'm saying in this episode, we see the Voyager model on Seven's desk very prominently as it pans over to her.
Oh, I didn't see that.
I feel like the Sisko's ball was somewhat foreshadowing the Dominion connection this episode, and there might be the Voyager model might be foreshadowing encroaching Voyager things this next episode, for the next episode.
That would be interesting. That'd be an interesting little Easter egg foreshadowing.
The ball is funny because I saw online a bunch of people were theorizing, and it's a fun theory, theorizing that possibly Shaw might have some anger towards Picard about Wolf 359, and the Sisko ball might have been alluding to a return of Avery Brooks. I don't think that's happening.
I would love to see it. God.
It'd be some really cool, like, thematics there running around with, like, in anger for Picard. Like, you have Jack angry because he wasn't there. You have, Shaw angry because he was there and he was Locutus. And then Sisko, like, sort of possibly being like, look, I was just hanging out with a bunch of damn aliens and I really gained a lot of perspective. And also, I too am now a deadbeat dad. So let me.
Well, exactly. He could return to his son the same way that Picard is returning to the son he didn't know about.
Yeah.
That could be interesting. I don't see it because I think they're trying to wrap the story of the Enterprise crew, and so like bringing him in as like a Deus Ex Machina, which I think is all you could do. Like the things are tipping towards war with the Dominion again, and like suddenly he's returned to us with like some either information or way to stop the war, and that'd be like kind of I feel like that would be really neat, but I don't think it would be great storytelling for the Enterprise crew.
Actually, you know what, Matt?
What?
They're in this nebula that they have now said twice have electronical and biological signatures.
Yeah.
What if the prophets are expanding?
I thought about them when they mentioned that. I was like, biological. The word biological in that made me really wonder, like, what's going on?
Yeah.
That biological means there's a life form in the nebula. And I think we'll find out pretty quick because they're falling towards this
gravity well.
And I think we're going to find out that what is at the center of this is not just a mindless gravity well,
Right.
Which, absolutely could be the prophets.
What if Sisko can show? I'm just like that.
Yeah. And we know they, you say, what if they're expanding? But we know that they like influenced Earth, like however many years ago. So they've been out among the galaxy.
Well, yeah, I'm just saying, like, what if they're like expanding the Celestial Temple? Like, what if like the Celestial Temple is not just a wormhole anymore? What if it's like evolving?
It'd be interesting.
I don't know, just throw on something out. I don't know how all this shit works. It's all sci-fi horseshit.
But a lot of what, they were the doorway. Their Celestial Temple was the doorway to the Dominion War. So if anyone would want to stop the Dominion War, they would be a race that might have a reason to want to stop it. Maybe all that travel through the wormhole, all the weaponry, they tried to destroy it multiple times. They put those mines around it. Like, what if they see the return of the Dominion War as risking the Celestial Temple and they're stepping in to stop it? But it's something that, we're theorizing about something that probably isn't going to happen. But if it does, we're probably not supposed to guess it because it would be definitely a big Deus Ex Machina if like they just like showed up, and stopped this whole plot.
And it's one of those where, like, normally I would bitch that the universe is too small if it actually happens. But I'd be so happy to see Sisko. I don't think I'd care.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing about, like, fan service.
Service me. I am a fan.
You gotta do it, and as long as you do it in a way that makes sense. I just don't like it when they like kind of fan service that I don't like is when they like do it to a way that jumps the shark. And that would all tie together pretty well because we're dealing with like the enemy. The Dominion War is the thing that Sisko fought to stop. For that's the whole show. That's what the whole show is really about. And then in the end, he like has that final battle and then takes off, and it would make a lot of sense for him to return in a moment when this is all falling back apart,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I want to see what's going on with the terrorist side of the changelings. But okay. Also the non-changelings. Like, what's going on in the Dominion? What's going on with the Vorta? What's going on with the Jem'Hadar? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to see all that. I want to know all those things.
Mm-hmm. And I loved the call out to Odo in this one. And I feel like it was also just a call out to Rene Auberjonois when they just said, like, and he was an honorable man.
Yeah,
that was really nice.
Yes. Speaking of call outs, I loved Beverly's reasoning for not coming forward. Not only because, Picard was always being targeted, but she knew that the son of Jean-Luc Picard would always be targeted. And just like the laundry list of like losing her husband and losing her son Wesley to the same stars that took you, like all of that was so good. And I'm hoping, like, I want all the things in a way. Like, I'm like, I want to see Wesley again. I want, there's been some speculation that there's like red herring. I can't say it, because Denise Crosby came out and was just like, I wasn't invited to the premiere, and people getting upset because they're like, why wouldn't they bring back Sayla? What if they are? Like, that kind of thing. I would love to see Sayla again. That was always one of like the big storylines in TNG that I always felt like they just ignored. They just dropped it.
Yeah, Sayla or a version of Tasha Yar even. We're getting lore. We're getting all the stuff we want. And I think with if we're talking about bringing in, there's multiple ways you could bring in time travel into the story pretty easily, and like godlike powers. When he said, you talk about Wesley Crusher, like, comes back to save his brother, or like comes back to help his mom not lose someone else, he's got godlike powers, and we some sort of being seems to live in this nebula. There we go. Like, there could be some sort of godlike creature.
They literally have links to two gods, Cisco and Wesley.
Yeah.
When you have links to two gods, I'm okay with a little Deus Machina.
Yeah. You're linked up enough that it makes a lot of sense here. And there's plenty of ways for them to tie it all together. And I do think this biological cloud is definitely going to tie in somehow, but I don't know how.
Yeah. You've got two gods. Bring them a machine.
Yeah. Oh, it's so funny. I was so in Star Trek mode that when the funnily explained British son of Picard was running in there with the Berterium, and he's like, put this on or it'll kill you, and he says, it'll have to join the queue. I thought he said, then I'll have to join the queue.
Like, I did the same thing, man.
Yeah, like, I was so in Star Trek mode, I didn't think, like, British word for line. I thought he's going to try to join the Q continuum if he dies.
By the way, I did love that they hung a lantern on the accent, where he's just like, the accent? He's just like, he went to school in London. He never shook it.
Yeah, the thing is, he's such a cool character. And now that I know he's one of those guys that went to college abroad and came back with an accent, he's a lot less cool.
Yes, I think that was by design.
Oh, I don't think so. I don't think making him less cool is by design.
Oh, no, I think it was.
It's really good. Anyway, I can't wait for more of this episode, man, or more of this series.
I think I think there's an idea there that they could have played with if they're like, when she said that he went to school abroad and never shook it. I think Picard could have been like, that's the same thing I did. Because everyone's always wondered, like, why he's a British guy who's supposed to be from Paris.
Yeah, that would be really funny, actually. But we do know now already that, like, I thought we learned that like last season we did learn how Picard did it because his whole family went to Britain for a couple of centuries or something. Then they moved back to their old home, right?
Yes, that's what was said.
Yeah. Which, kind of like what he did, except for just for a few years.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I can't wait. I can't wait for more of this. This sounds great. Hey guys, we're doing this the night it dropped, and it's kind of late, so we're gonna keep this one short, I think. But if you guys get a chance to write in some feedback, we might do a feedback episode. Because last week we had a lot of feedback about the last episode, and I feel like this one's gonna maybe even more popular. So send feedback to StarTrekUniverse@gmail.com, and we'll see if we can squeeze a feedback episode in this week.
Yep, we're also on Twitter at Star Trek UCast.
Yeah. Join the conversation. Let's make this broader than me and Dave. I'm sure you guys saw things or noticed things that we didn't notice, so let us know.
Oh, yeah, definitely you guys saw things that we didn't notice. That's always the case.
Mm-hmm. Man, I loved it. I'm trying to think if there's any characters that we missed getting into a little bit, because I just think they all seem great.
I loved when they first bring up that they're getting electronic and biological signatures, and Shaw was like, "Well, that's fun."
He was like, "Can you throw any more weird shit at me?" or something like that.
Yes. And then he starts coding in the friggin' ER in the med bay, and I was like, "No, don't kill him yet. I love him."
Yeah. He put Riker in command of another Titan that looks so cool, I'm like, ugh. Mm-hmm. And then they start killing him. I'm like, no, we really need Shaw.
I did. One of my giggling fits was when Picard said to Riker, "It's time you called me number one." I loved that.
That was really good. The face he made was really funny. It's one of those jokes, though, that in the heat of the moment always feels weird. Like, that's a funny joke, but it's that they get so quippy when they get in the heat of battle. Mm-hmm. Sometimes. And sometimes those jokes, I liked it a lot, and I liked how they played it a lot, but sometimes they play it so silly that it's like, you're in the middle of a life or death fight right now.
Yeah.
It's time you called me number one. Yeah.
Yeah. I do feel like we've somewhat glossed over because, like, the conversation with Beverly and Picard, because, my God, like, that you're always going, like, you don't do this because it's put upon you. You do this because you love it, Just like, and just the whole thing about not giving him a choice, like, who knows what kind of man I could have been. Like, it was that was gorgeous writing.
It really was.
And her saying, I thought I could protect my son. I didn't know if I could protect yours. That was...
Yeah. They just wrote this whole episode with a lot of care. And those conversations were... And that's one of the things I think Star Trek has been lacking in the first 2 seasons of this show. I think some of the just like... It just feels like they're just like getting to plot points instead of like having those like really interesting conversations sometimes. Mm-hmm. And this season so far, they're really like taking their time and like making it. I don't know. Those are the conversations we're gonna remember. There's not very many conversations I remember from those first couple seasons of the show, but I'm gonna remember her saying that.
I love this episode. It was called 17 Seconds, and then Riker tells him, about the 17 seconds it took to get from the bridge to sick bay, and then we get that. He said it was the longest turbo lift ride of his life. And then Picard gets the same thing. We actually get that shot of him standing in the turbo lift, thinking, "Oh, this is it." Like when Jack is being rushed to the med bay. Mm-hmm. I love how that came around. 17 seconds is going to stick with me for a while.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, man. Made me think of Kirk's dad, who didn't get to take that ride.
George Kirk?
Yeah, George.
In the 09? Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we're going to wrap because it's late.
Yep. It is.
And then we'll be around this week. Hit us up at Star Trek UCast on Twitter or Star Trek ucast@gmail.com, right?
Yep. And
either of those places.
Do it. And we're also on Instagram too, but I don't remember the name. I think it was Star Trek UCast, but it might be Star Trek Universe Podcast over there.
Okay. Well, find us out. We'll be around. We can't wait to hear from you guys and hear what you guys are saying, because I just think this episode's great. It feels like the Star Trek that I love the most.
On Instagram, we are Star Trek Universe Podcast.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yep.
All right, guys. We'll be back soon. Peace. Jolan True.
Live long and prosper.
Thank you for listening to the Star Trek Universe Podcast, a Stranded Panda production. If you'd like to hear more from David C. Robertson, check out the DC On Screen podcast or maladjusted.tv for his web videos. If you'd like to hear more from Matthew Carroll, check out the Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast or listen to his music. Just search for Matthew Carroll anywhere you get music.